Chosen one, you were not abandoned, you were positioned. There is a difference between rejection and redirection, between isolation and insulation. When heaven pulls you away from certain people, places, and energies, it is not punishment, it is protection. The distance you feel is not emptiness. It is a sacred shield forming around your purpose. You are being hidden, not forgotten. You are being separated so your spirit can breathe again, so that clarity can return. Where confusion once lived, every closed door, every unanswered call, every sudden silence, none of it was random. Heaven was rearranging your atmosphere so you could finally hear what noise once drowned out. Before we go deeper, watch this message to the very end. There is revelation waiting for you in every line, and when the words begin to resonate within your soul, write your warmest wishes and 777 in the comments. Let it not be routine, let it be an act of alignment. That number, that intention becomes a code of connection between you and the divine frequency of manifestation. You are calling miracles into motion by agreeing with peace. This is your reminder that even distance can hold blessings unseen. As you stay till the end, clarity will begin to form where confusion once stood. You will feel your spirit remember what safety truly feels like. Now listen. The reason it had to happen this way is because your energy became too valuable to be shared carelessly. You reached a point where certain energies could no longer coexist with your growth. Not because you're better than them, but because your vibration no longer feeds what they carry. When light expands, shadow either transforms or retreats. Some of the people who left were not enemies, they were assignments that ended. They were lessons disguised as comfort, seasons disguised as permanence. Heaven removed them not to punish, but to preserve. You were being refined for a future they couldn't enter without breaking it. The separation was strategic. Every pause, every quiet day, every moment where you felt unseen, it was heaven rerouting you through silence. Distance had to come before discovery, because if you stayed surrounded by noise, you would have mistaken imitation for instruction. There were voices claiming to guide you, but only echoing confusion. That's why things stopped working. You were never being delayed. You were being detoxed. The divine was extracting influence that didn't belong in your next season. You were never meant to heal in the same space that broke you. When heaven wants to protect, it isolates. When destiny approaches, clarity demands quiet. That is why solitude feels heavy. It's a classroom, not a cage. Your absence from others has been your presence with God. You've been feeling the weight of separation because your spirit was expanding beyond the limits of old attachments. Not everyone was meant to come where you're going. Some connections would have contaminated the elevation. You're not being antisocial. You are being preserved for divine alignment. Even your loneliness had a mission. It was designed to reveal what needed healing. When the noise stopped, what remained was truth. Distance forced you to face yourself, to recognize the difference between genuine connection and dependency, between loyalty and attachment. The divine needed to remind you that your peace was never supposed to depend on proximity. You are learning that protection sometimes feels like loss because we confuse what's familiar with what's safe. But safety is not found in company, it's found in alignment. When you finally embrace distance, peace begins to pour in quietly. You'll notice that your sleep deepens, your thoughts calm, your creativity returns. You begin to hear divine instruction again. Heaven always speaks clearest in silence. The distance you once resented becomes the very thing that protects your energy. People may not understand your withdrawal. They will call it coldness or pride. But only you know what it feels like to protect your peace after almost losing it. The divine is saying, do not rush back to noise that you prayed to escape. You will feel tempted to explain your distance, to soften it, to make others comfortable with your boundaries, but protection doesn't require permission. You're not here to prove that you're kind, you're here to stay aligned. When your spirit says, step back, obey instantly. Delay turns divine guidance into emotional exhaustion. There are situations you avoided simply because heaven gave you an uneasy feeling, and that unease was salvation. The distance you kept was your destiny, surviving unseen attacks. Stop apologizing for the space that saved you. Chosen one, this season of distance is not about rejection, it's about recognition. You are learning to recognize the value of your peace, the weight of your calling, the price of your energy. When the divine sets boundaries on your behalf, it's because your light is entering a realm where access must be earned. Heaven guards rare things. Diamonds are not left on sidewalks. They are hidden deep until they're ready to be revealed. You're in that hiddenness now, being polished in silence. When the unveiling comes, every delay will make sense. You will soon understand why the divine had to separate you before it could elevate you. Distance was not isolation, it was insulation. While others thought you were standing still, heaven was building the foundation that could sustain your next level. The silence that once hurt you will become sacred to you. The loneliness that once broke you will become the peace that guides you. And when you finally return to the world, it will not be to seek validation, it will be to radiate purpose. Because distance was never meant to end your story. It was meant to rewrite it. You were not forgotten in solitude, you were found in it, and soon everyone who questioned your disappearance will witness your reappearance, but this time not as the wounded one, but as the awakened one. The distance was divine, the separation was sacred, the silence was strategy. And now, you are ready to see what heaven was protecting all along. You. Distance is not emptiness, beloved one. It is clarity. When the divine separates you, it is not to punish your heart, but to protect your perception. In closeness, you could not see clearly. Emotions fogged your vision. But in distance, truth unfolds like dawn after a long storm. You start to recognize the energy that once confused you. You begin to see what was hidden in plain sight, the motives behind smiles, the intentions wrapped in words, the subtle drain that followed certain interactions. Separation gives sight. It removes the noise long enough for your spirit to speak again. When heaven creates distance, it is not cruelty, it is communication. It says, you've seen enough with your eyes, now it's time to see with your soul. This silence you're in is not punishment, it is sacred recalibration. Your intuition is being restored to its original strength. You are being taught to sense before you see, to feel before you trust, to recognize before you respond. The divine is reawakening your inner compass. It is teaching you how to detect peace from pretense, truth from imitation, alignment from attachment. What once slipped through your kindness will now stop at your awareness. You are learning the language of vibration, and that language never lies. When you step away, the fog lifts. You begin to see that some connections only thrived because they were constantly fed by your effort. When you stopped showing up, they faded. That was your proof. True connection does not require constant proximity. It survives distance. What disappears when you detach was never meant to stay. Heaven knew you could not see this truth while you were still emotionally invested, so it created the separation for you. You were not ghosting anyone, you were being guided into truth. You didn't walk away in pride, you were pulled away by purpose. This distance is reintroducing you to yourself. You are meeting your own energy again, the calm, the strength, the voice that was buried beneath everyone else's noise. You are remembering what your peace feels like when it is not shared with chaos. For so long you adapted to tension. You carried the emotional weight of others without realizing how heavy it had become. But in solitude, your soul exhales. The divine is rewiring you back to your natural frequency, one that moves with clarity, not confusion. That's why certain atmospheres no longer feel comfortable. You've outgrown the vibration of drama. You've graduated from emotional noise. Do not rush to fill the silence. This space is medicine. You are detoxing from people, patterns, and energies that diluted your discernment. At first, you might mistake the peace for loneliness. That's how healing feels in the beginning, like emptiness, because chaos used to be your normal. But soon the peace will feel like home. You will wake up one day and realize that you no longer crave company, you crave alignment. The urge to explain, to prove, to chase will vanish. Your boundaries will become natural, not defensive. That's what divine protection feels like, not walls, but wisdom. Pay attention to how distance begins to reveal what was hidden. Watch how certain people grow distant when they can no longer benefit from your energy. Notice how some only reach out when they need to drain, not when they need to give. Distance exposes truth effortlessly. It shows you who checks in when there's no advantage, who prays for you without being asked, who respects silence instead of demanding presence. The divine uses this distance as a filter. Those who remain are those whose intentions were pure all along. Let that awareness bring you peace, not pain. The truth does not hurt. It heals. This sacred space is also sharpening your spiritual instincts. You are learning to sense divine timing. You can feel when to move, when to speak, when to stay still. You no longer act from pressure. You act from peace. You are learning that not every opportunity is a calling, and not every invitation deserves your energy. The divine has made you sensitive to spiritual climate. The same way you can sense when someone carries light, you will now feel when energy shifts in a room. It is not paranoia, it is discernment. You are being prepared to lead with vision, not reaction. Distance teaches you something closeness never could, that peace is louder than words. In your stillness, your energy speaks for you. You are beginning to understand that divine protection often looks like divine pause. Heaven knows what your heart doesn't yet see. Sometimes you were ready for them, but they were not ready for your truth. So heaven stepped in and said, wait until their energy matches yours. Wait until what's meant for you arrives healed, not hungry. That's why this silence is sacred. It's alignment in progress. Soon you will thank the divine for every distance that confused you. You will realize that it saved you from emotional traps, unseen jealousy, unspoken competition. You will see how much power you lost trying to belong where you were only tolerated, and you will finally understand. Distance didn't take anything from you. It returned everything that mattered, your focus, your strength, your peace. What you thought was isolation was actually insulation. The divine covered you until your awareness became sharp enough to protect itself. And now that protection has become permanent. Chosen one, this separation is not the end of connection. It's the birth of discernment. You are not alone, you are surrounded by purpose. Every inch of distance between you and the past is being filled with divine alignment. Stay in the silence. Let it complete its work. When you emerge again, you will not need to explain why you left. You will embody the peace that proves it. Distance begins to evolve into something greater now. It becomes elevation. What once felt like exile is now empowerment. You are learning that separation was never about escape, it was about refinement. The divine had to take you away from noise so your true frequency could emerge. Every quiet season is a sacred furnace. In that furnace, distraction burns away and purpose takes shape. You are not being isolated, you are being positioned. The divine hides what it values most until it's strong enough to stand before the world unshaken. You've noticed that lately your solitude feels different. It no longer feels heavy, it feels holy. The air around you has changed. You are more sensitive to energy, to atmosphere, to tone. You can feel when something aligns and when something doesn't. You can sense when someone's intentions are sincere and when they're not. This is not suspicion, it's sight. Heaven has given you eyes that no longer see people by presentation, but by vibration. The same distance that once made you feel invisible has now made you unapproachable to anything unclean. This is divine protection in its purest form. The divine has turned your quiet into armor. You don't need to defend yourself anymore. Your absence does that for you. Your withdrawal speaks louder than explanation ever could. There's a reason you feel no urge to retaliate or correct misunderstandings. Peace has become your response. When you no longer chase clarification, it means your confidence is rooted in truth. The divine defends those who stay silent in righteousness. Distance becomes your proof. Those who are meant to understand will feel your absence more clearly than they ever heard your words. You are beginning to understand that energy is currency. Every interaction costs something. Every conversation either builds or breaks your focus. That is why the divine started removing unnecessary connections. They were emotional leaks, small openings where your spiritual energy escaped unnoticed. You thought you were being distant. In reality, you were being restored. The fewer people who access your energy, the faster you heal. Distance is not coldness, it is conservation. You are learning to preserve what took heaven years to build inside you. This stage of your journey will require discernment more than desire. Not everyone who reaches for you deserves access to you. There will be people who interpret your peace as arrogance, your silence as avoidance, your focus as rejection. But you must remember, divine protection often looks like misunderstanding. When heaven hides you, it also hides your intentions. Let them assume what they will. Your truth is not obligated to defend itself. You are learning the strength of stillness, the power that moves without movement. And look closely, your solitude has not been empty. It's been filled with preparation. In silence, your mind became sharper, your faith stronger, your spirit steadier. What was once uncertainty is now intuition. You no longer guess, You sense divine timing so precisely that you move only when instructed, not when pressured. That is what happens when protection becomes alignment. Heaven has trained your reflexes to respond only to peace. That's why you've been feeling uninterested in chaos, detached from noise, uninterested in what once excited you. You are no longer chasing stimulation, you crave stillness. That shift is proof of transformation. The distance you now live in has become sacred ground. It's the space where your energy regenerates, where your heart hears guidance, where your soul receives downloads meant only for you. That's why some people couldn't come closer. They would have intercepted revelation not meant for their frequency. The divine does not reveal blueprints in crowded rooms, it whispers in solitude. That's where strategy is born, where visions are planted, where wisdom is delivered in silence so pure that even thoughts grow quiet to listen. Chosen one, understand this. What you call distance, heaven calls defense. Every delay, every no, every unseen season, it was protection from hands not yet ready to handle you. You may have thought you lost time, but you actually gained it. The divine stretched your seasons to prepare you for impact. You could not see it then, but every lonely moment was sharpening your intuition, sealing your boundaries, cleansing your energy. You were being hidden, not to be forgotten, but to be fortified. Some battles never reached you simply because you were out of range. And now the world is beginning to notice your glow again, but it feels different. You don't crave attention, you radiate awareness. People can sense that something has shifted, but they can't explain it. That's because divine distance has changed your energy. You no longer move to be seen. You move because you're sent. You no longer connect from need. You connect from knowing. Your silence now carries authority. The same quiet that once made you question your worth has become the signal of your strength. You are walking proof that distance was never rejection, it was redirection into revelation. It taught you to hear God's whisper louder than people's applause. It taught you that solitude is not the absence of love, but the refinement of it. And now, the version of you that is emerging is unstoppable, centered, grounded, unbothered. You have become the embodiment of divine stillness, moving when led, resting when told, and glowing even when unseen. That is the mark of a soul fully protected by distance. There is a sacred rhythm that begins to unfold when distance becomes peace. You will notice that the more you stay still, the faster things start to move in your favor. This is divine paradox. When you stop chasing, what's meant for you begins to seek you. Distance places you in the center of divine alignment, where everything starts arriving without strain. Doors open quietly, opportunities come naturally, and people who once overlooked you suddenly feel drawn to your energy again. But this time, the difference is clear. You are not available in the same way. You are still kind, but you are no longer accessible to chaos. You are still loving, but your love no longer negotiates peace. You give from overflow now, not from depletion. The divine uses distance to build capacity. In solitude, you learned how to receive without reaching, how to rest without guilt, how to listen without reacting. You learned that silence does not mean nothing is happening, it means everything is happening beneath the surface. This realization has made you powerful in ways words cannot capture. You have shifted from forcing outcomes to flowing with divine order. You no longer need to explain your choices because you have learned to trust that peace itself is confirmation. The people who once questioned your withdrawal will soon witness your elevation. What they called isolation was incubation. You were being prepared for something that required quiet construction. You will begin to feel new energy rising within you, steady, intentional, calm. This is the energy of someone who no longer doubts divine timing. You have stopped begging for signs because you have become one. Your alignment radiates through your actions. You are walking evidence that protection was purpose all along. Distance built discipline, and discipline became your doorway to destiny. The divine couldn't release your next season while you were surrounded by noise. It had to silence the environment so your intuition could take command. That's why this next chapter will feel effortless. You are not manifesting anymore, you are magnetizing. The frequency of divine flow has found you, and now everything aligned will naturally come your way. Be mindful. As your energy expands, certain familiar faces will reappear, drawn not by love but by curiosity. They will sense the shift and wonder what changed. But remember, distance has rewritten your access code. Not everyone who knew the old you deserves an entry into the renewed you. The divine will test your boundaries by allowing familiar energy to approach again. Only this time you'll feel the difference instantly. Their words will sound the same, but the vibration will be wrong. Your peace will tighten, your body will whisper, "Not this time." That is discernment perfected, when your spirit recognizes what your mind no longer needs to analyze. You are now being trusted with divine isolation as a tool, not a trial. You can enter silence and emerge stronger. You can detach without resentment. You can say no without guilt. This is mastery. You no longer fear distance. You use it as direction. You no longer see solitude as loss. You see it as alignment. When something threatens your peace, you no longer fight to fix it. You simply step back and let divine order handle what you've already outgrown. Your absence now does more healing than your presence ever could. The divine is preparing to reveal why the distance was necessary. Soon you will walk into rooms that feel familiar, yet entirely different. You will meet people who mirror the calm you now carry. Conversations will flow without effort, and alignment will replace attachment. These are divine connections. Souls that vibrate at the same frequency of peace you have earned. They will not rush you, drain you, or confuse you. They will understand your quiet because they have lived through their own separation. Together, you will build without competition, grow without comparison, and love without fear. This is what divine protection leads to divine partnership. Distance not only protects, it prepares. It cleanses your energy so that when new blessings arrive, they don't get polluted by old patterns. You are no longer vibrating in survival. You are living in serenity. The divine needed you alone long enough to prove that peace can exist without approval. Now you're ready to stand in the world again, not as a seeker, but as a source. You are no longer waiting to be chosen, you are walking as chosen. The silence has done its work. The distance has built your discernment. The separation has shaped your strength. So when the divine brings new faces, new doors, and new missions, you will walk in softly but powerfully, knowing that what once hurt you now protects you. You will not explain your peace, you will embody it. You will not chase connection. You will attract alignment. The divine has used distance to make you unshakable. The world will sense it before you speak it. And those who once misunderstood your silence will finally understand. It was never isolation. It was preparation for everything you were meant to become. Now the silence around you has ripened into peace. You can feel it, the difference between loneliness and solitude, between avoidance and alignment. The ache that once filled the quiet has turned into calm understanding. What you once called isolation now feels like home. This is the completion of divine protection. The distance no longer hurts, it heals. You do not crave what you left behind, because your spirit finally understands that what could not follow you was never meant to sustain you. The divine has closed those doors permanently, not out of cruelty but mercy. You were meant to move forward with clarity, not attachments. You have become fluent in silence. You no longer need words to feel connected. You recognize energy instantly. You can sense sincerity before it's spoken, deception before it forms. This awareness isn't paranoia, it's protection. Heaven equipped you to see through what others fall for. You've been trained to read vibration the way others read expressions. That's why peace has become your compass. It points you toward what is divine and away from what drains. Now, every time you step back, you do it with understanding, not fear. You know that distance is not withdrawal, it's wisdom. And wisdom does not argue, it observes. You've entered a level where silence carries more power than speech. When you stop explaining yourself, people start revealing themselves. The divine has taught you that truth never defends, it simply stands. You do not need to prove you're kind, loyal, or good. Those meant for your path will see it without you saying a word. And those who misjudge your stillness were never meant to understand your assignment. Let them wonder, let them talk. The noise they create cannot reach where you now dwell. Distance has elevated you to an atmosphere where gossip loses oxygen. Only truth breathes here. So walk forward with grace. The distance that once hurt you now guards you. The silence that once scared you now guides you. You are no longer waiting to be seen, you are glowing in stillness, radiating wisdom, earned through solitude. Every step you take is protected, every pause intentional, every boundary divine. You have learned the rarest truth that protection does not always roar. It often whispers, "Stay still." You obeyed, and because of that, heaven will honor you. The distance was not the end, it was the beginning of discernment, peace, and divine mastery. You are safe, you are free, you are protected by distance. And that protection will never fail you, and now peace walks with you like a living presence. You no longer chase explanations or force belonging. Everything that is yours moves toward you naturally. Distance no longer feels like loss, it feels like order. What was once silence has become your sacred language with heaven. Every quiet moment carries guidance, every pause carries power. You have learned to let go with love and step back with grace.